Is this, yes, it is. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Jenny, for including me in this. I'm delighted to be here. That's an understatement. I wasn't here yesterday, but I came today, and I wish I'd been here yesterday. That's kind of where I'm standing here, regretting that I couldn't come yesterday, but happy that I'm here today. So I'm going to talk to you about everything that I can think of in 30 minutes. But I'll start with the topic I've been asked to talk about called the soul of money. And just to say a couple things about where I learned what I know. I've been a pro-activist for 40 years, more than years than some of you have been alive on this planet, maybe 45 years. A pro-activist is someone who's an activist for, not against. A pro-activist is someone whose vision for the world is stronger than what you're angry about or what you're trying to change or what you're trying to, dismantle, but you're not naive because you know between you and the vision you have for the world, there are things to address. But your gaze, your energy is positive towards what you're committed to rather than what you're against. So hopefully all of you are pro-activists. And my pro-activism has included the commitment to end world hunger for many, many, many years, the Hunger Project, which became very clear in the early days of the Hunger Project that the disruption that was appropriate and the most powerful intervention for ending world hunger and alleviating poverty, and actually ending poverty, is the empowerment of women and girls. Not food distribution, helpful, not political change, helpful, not new seeds, helpful, not fertilizers, not helpful, but the empowerment of women and girls actually ends up being the most effective intervention for ending world hunger. Who would have thought? The same thing is true for what I work on now, which is environmental issues in particular and social justice issues through the Pachamama Alliance. How many of you know about Pachamama? Pachamama means Mother Earth. The word Pachamama, it's a Quechua word, or the earth, the sky, the universe, and all time. That's what the Quechua people mean by that word. And the Pachamama Alliance is an alliance between indigenous peoples of the sacred headwaters of the Amazon and conscious, committed people in the modern world like all of you. So in these incarnations in my own life, ending world hunger, working with the empowerment of women and girls, the Pachamama Alliance, bringing forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet, which is I know what you're up to here. We being Sarah Vetter and I, who I'll introduce in a moment, also work with the Nobel Women Peace Prize laureates, the women who are alive who won the Nobel Peace Prize. So I've had a life that you would never have been able to plan. A life that I call a committed life that guided me to places and people that if I had dreamed of meeting them, Mother Teresa, for example, Desmond Tutu, for example, or people with their hands in the dirt in Ethiopia after the famine, or in Mozambique after the war, or in Liberia in prison after the end of that war. Those are the people who taught me about money. Now that seems weird. Mother Teresa, money, kind of doesn't fit in the same sentence. However, she, as I often tell as many audiences as I can, was an incredibly gifted financial person. Not the kind of financial planner that went to business school or had economic background, but she started 506 missions in 104 countries in 42 years, which is pretty awesome. That's an entrepreneur of a great skill. And that cost money. She was a very, very, very effective fundraiser. And I often remind people, if Mother Teresa asked you for money, you did not say no. So I've been, in all of those activities as a pro-activist, I've had the great opportunity to raise hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in what most people call the not-for-profit sector or non-profit sector or non-governmental sector, NGOs. I just say that once to make sure you know what I'm talking about, but I hate those terms I don't like being in the non-sector or the not-for sector, because I believe that the work to eliminate hunger and poverty on this planet, to have a healthy, thriving environment, to have social justice for every single human being on this planet, to give everyone a chance for a healthy and productive life, is the mainstream of everybody's life. Whether they're earning it through a company that's generating enormous financial profits, what we all know and want is to do work that's meaningful, that does no harm, that does no destruction to the natural world or to other people. So everybody is in what I call, hopefully, the social profit sector. We're generating a social profit. And when you generate a social profit and your eye is on that prize, and you earn money, and you raise money, and you make money, you live a meaningful life, and what you do makes a difference, which is really what we want. That's really what we want. So the social profit organizations of our time are led by people like you, who I call social prophets, P-R-O-P-H-E-T. Social prophets, people who stand for a new future, a future that is completely new, completely groundbreaking, completely glorious, and is not necessarily an extension of what we have now or an extension of the past. A social prophet lives in that future, works back from the vision of that future into today, and rearranges, recreates, resources the work, the company, the being sphere, and the wealth. For me, the word wealth means well-being. Actually, it comes from, the etymology of that word, wealth, comes from well-being. Think about what that is. The well of being, which is infinite, from which all of the innovations that are represented in this room draws. The well of being. That's the true wealth of any generation. And finally, your generation, I'm older than most of you, you can probably tell, your generation is discovering that well of being is the source of true wealth. Not money, but the well of being that has your life mean something, that has you making a living rather than a killing. Many people have been making a killing, not a living, that is harming someone somewhere for the benefit of financial profit, or destroying an ecosystem, or polluting a river, or using slave labor and turning the other way, or paying people not minimum wage and making a killing rather than a living. And then billions of people, unfortunately, on the planet, the way the economy is organized, are making a dying rather than a living. By that I mean doing something that demeans them, that gives them no self-expression, gives them no capacity to be who they really are, but just to make a meager salary. So we have a few people over here, a whole lot of people over here, but what you're doing, at least everything that I can hear and feel, I mean, you can feel it. You've designed your lives to make a living. And that's what we need now, a living. Actual companies, innovations, ideas that are about the proliferation and the expansion, the deepening, the nourishing, the nurturing of life. And that's an economy that's consistent with the ecology. Eco. In the world that we live in now, not everybody, not you, but the big economy out there thinks that the ecology is a subset of the giant economy from which we will derive wealth, rather than the economy is a subset of the ecology. The ecology is the source. And given that as of 1987, which is now more than 20, how many years ago is that? 30 years ago, we have been in what's called ecological debt. Ecological debt, meaning we're using more than one planet. We don't have more than one planet, but we've gone over what's called the one Earth line, meaning that we're using more resources than the Earth can regenerate. We're using the ecological capital now rather than the dividends from the ecological systems on which our lives depend. We're now somewhere in the neighborhood of 51%, using 51% more of the ecological capital than we have, which means we're in ecological debt using an ecological credit card we can never pay back. So it's reflected, I say, this is my assertion, in the economic debt we're swimming in. Think about the most powerful, most remarkable, most wealthy country in the history of the world, ours, also has the biggest, most gargantuan, most horrific debt in the history of the world. How does that work? Because we are in ecological debt, it is reflected in economic debt. Until we learn how to live within our ecological means, we will keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing to get out of economic debt, which only puts us deeper into economic debt. So for those of you who are starting companies, who are raising capital, who are beginning the next wave of this wonderful shared economy, it's so clear to me that, that you are living in a different reality, different understanding of the economy, and you are shaping a new kind of ecological mindset that is consistent with the natural systems of the earth, and the economy that you're creating, the shared economy, is consistent with the laws of nature. And I bow to you, I thank you, I'm in tears over it, because my generation not only didn't do that, but we exploited the ecology to build an economic system that I hope is dying on the vine right now. That's my goal. I think we need to hospice the natural death of the old economic systems that no longer serve us. While we midwife the birth of the new economic systems that are consistent with the ecology, consistent with reverence and respect for the natural world, consistent with social justice, giving everybody a chance for a healthy and productive life, consistent for companies and entrepreneurs and economic systems that are friendly, loving, respectful. By the way, the word respect means to re-spectate, re-see. When we approach all of this with respect, we're constantly giving ourselves permission to re-look, to respectate, to re-see, to reframe. And so I want to just thank you for being hospice workers and midwife workers, hospicing the death of the old economy while you midwife the birth of the new one. And in my world, anyway, hospicing and midwifing are both acts of love, are both acts of witnessing, participation, reverence, respect, and love. And my experience of listening to you today and being in just a couple sessions and having wonderful processes, dyads with the people that I've had a chance to meet here, you are generating an economy from the infinite source, the well of being that is the love you have for this world. So thank you, and God bless you for that. Thank you. Oh, come on, you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, a standing ovation right in the middle. That's pretty good. I love you. Nice. Well, gosh. Well, another thing. A couple other things. I was going to do a A-B process and this whole thing about scarcity and sufficiency, which is really at the subject and the heart of my book, but you're all getting the book, so maybe I don't need to do all that. You just read the book. Then the rest of my 15 minutes, we can do a little love fest. But I do want to say that I think the economy that we're leaving behind with reverence and respect, that's what you do when you hospice something. You let it die its natural death. That which is hospiced, if you've ever participated in a hospice center or had a relative that was dying that you had a hospice worker help you with, that which wants to die dies faster because there's a permission. It doesn't struggle. It or he or she doesn't struggle. It allows the reverence and respect and gratitude and appreciation for the end of an era to be seen and known. And that actually is what I think we need to do with this economy. You know, and it'll have its death throes. It'll fight for life. We're seeing that. But if we give it gratitude. So I work in the Amazon rainforest, as I sort of alluded to, with the indigenous peoples of the sacred headwaters of the Amazon. The sacred headwaters of the Amazon is at the lower part of the Ecuador, the country of Ecuador, the northern part of Peru. It's about 100 million acres. It's pristine, most of it, not all. It's roadless, most of it, not all. The indigenous people who live there are called the children of the jaguar. It's the most prevalent place on the planet where the jaguar is not in danger, not in danger of extinction, is plentiful. And they consider themselves the children of the jaguar because they know that it's their fierce and unyielding commitment to never allow this ecosystem to be in any way compromised or damaged. And the Pachamama Alliance was called there years ago to empower and work with them to understand the outside world, to understand oil companies, to understand the governments there. They happen to be living under the influence of not even knowing that there was a government or there was a country called Ecuador, and to help them navigate the very difficult but inevitable encounter with the modern world. And these are people who had no relationship with money. So part of my teachings about money, not only coming from people that I used to call poor, which I would never call poor any longer because that collapsed their financial circumstances with who they are, and who they are is awesome, whole, complete, courageous, innovative, intelligent. Or lessons I've learned from people I used to call rich, and that also deserves them. It collapses their circumstances of excess with who they are, which are whole, complete, courageous, intelligent, loving people living in sometimes the tyranny of excess resources that can amplify things that you don't want to amplify in your own character. But people in the Amazon who've had no relationship with money, they didn't even know there was such a thing. And I like to quote them because they say, well, you can't hunt for it, you can't eat it. Why does everybody want it? It's kind of like... So for them, introducing them to money was a revelation for us, and gave us a new insight because, you know, you and I, we were born into a world where money was almost like a god. And for them, they didn't even know there was such a thing. So it gave me a blank slate to re-examine this thing called money. Where did it come from? How come it has us by the throat? Why is it making us so crazy? And so I've seen very clearly that the money system, it has generated a culture, and this is a culture conference, a culture of scarcity. And this is I want to leave you with an inquiry about this, a culture of scarcity. The money system is so heavily influencing the way we think, what we wake up in the morning worried about, the nightmares we have when we go to sleep at night, the anxiety, the depression, the upsets, the ups and downs of our lives are so entangled, unfortunately, with money that we've forgotten we invented the stuff, that it's our invention. It seems more real almost in the natural world, more real than breathing. Yet it's our creation, and we've forgotten that. So the culture of scarcity, which is at the base of the money system, has become a culture that we all live in. Well, there's not enough money. There's not enough market share. There's not enough time. There's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough hours in the night. There's not enough sleep. There's not enough vacation. There's not enough sex. There's not enough this. There's not enough that. There's not enough this. We don't have enough. You don't have enough. I don't have enough. It's not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. The culture of scarcity, which is at the heart of the economic system, and the money system is so heavily present in our lives that we live in a culture of scarcity. Scarcity even with our own self. I'm not enough. And it's created a deficit mentality in the way we think, in the way we operate, and it's based on assumptions. All cultures, you probably said this yesterday, but I'll say it today if it hasn't been said, all cultures come from assumptions. And unless you change the assumption, the culture cannot transform. So the culture of scarcity, the culture of money, is based on a scarcity notion that I say is false, and that the new economy that you're creating does not bow to, thank God, for the most part. The new economy that you are creating, the shared economy, the open economy, is an economy that's much more consistent with what I call the radical, surprising truth of enough. Enough. Sufficiency. Enough. Being met by the universe with exactly what you need, over and over and over again. Being met by the universe with a bankruptcy, if that's what you need. Being met by the universe with a divorce, if that's what you need to find your independence. That the universe keeps providing us with exactly what we need to become the people we need to be, to transform into the leaders that are appropriate for the 21st century. And so I am an advocate for, a stand for, the principles of sufficiency, enough, which is distinct from abundance, We're in the condition of thinking called scarcity. We race right past enough as if it didn't even happen. You know, who ever thinks about enough of anything? It's always about more, 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 more. Indiscriminate more, automatic more, a kind of unconscious, unexamined clamoring for more. I suggest that you can't really get to true abundance or prosperity through the portal of automatic, scrambling, frantic pursuit of more. It will always lead you to lack, and then you'll need more again. And then you'll go through that portal of more, and it will eventually lead you to lack, and you'll need more again. But the true route to true prosperity, true abundance, true fulfillment, really making a difference with your life and your work and your company, is recognizing, allowing, dwelling in the exquisite distinction of enough. And from there, out of gratitude, appreciation, and true gratefulness, it will overflow into natural abundance. And that natural abundance won't be for you, it'll be for the world. So when that overflow takes place from appreciation, from gratitude, from the nourishment and recognition of enough, it overflows into natural, true prosperity and abundance. And it is designed, or you will see that it is for the world. That's a little bit abstract, but people are nodding their heads, so I think you get what I'm talking about. So let me give you the principle of sufficiency, which is sort of my bottom line statement. If you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, which is what we're clamoring and brainwashed to want more of what we don't really need now. It frees up, if you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, it frees up oceans of energy that are all tied up in that frantic chase to turn and pay attention to what you have. When you pay attention to what you have, when you nourish it, when you love it, when you own it, when you make a difference with it, and when you share it, it expands. Let me say that again. When you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, it frees up all that energy tied up in the chase to turn and pay attention to what you already have. When you pay attention to what you already have, when you nourish it, when you're grateful for it, when you appreciate it, when you make a difference with it, and when you share it, it expands. I call this the radical, surprising truth. A short way to say that, since that was kind of a long paragraph, is what you appreciate appreciates. What you appreciate appreciates. And in that context of sufficiency, money is like water. It flows in and it flows to where it wants to go next. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to all of us or none of us. And it comes through our lives, nourishing us, and then we pass it on so we'll nourish the next thing. Rather than we hold on to it, which, if you think about water, when it's held and stopped, it becomes stagnant and toxic to those who are holding it. So I say you are people who will be known for what you allocate, not what you accumulate. You will be known for what you allocate, not what you accumulate. And money, being like water, can nourish, can purify, can make things grow. But when it's held and hoarded, it actually makes us sick. So I don't want to make my generation too wrong. We did some good stuff. But there's a mindset, a set of assumptions underneath the old economy that we need to let go of. And you don't have those assumptions, and God bless you for that. I also want to thank you for being what Buckminster Fuller, who was you could call my root teacher, Buckminster Fuller, if you know who he was. He was in the 20th century. He was an awesome guy, really way ahead of his time. He said to me and my husband about my children and grandchildren, they weren't born at the time, but anyway, he said, never forget that your children are your elders in universe time. And that's true of your children too, if you have them. They've come into a more complete, more evolved universe than you can ever understand except through their eyes. Your children are your elders in universe time. It's never been more true than it is in the 21st century, where people in my generation have a peer relationship with people in your generation. We in my generation, baby boomer generation, we need your innovation knowledge. We need your creativity to thrive in today's world. We need to know how to turn on our television set. And you need our wisdom. You need our attention to ritual. You know, the more digital we get, the more ritual we need. The more digital we get, the more ritual we need. And then one other acknowledgement of your generation in my last minute and a half is the great native prophecy from the Americas that I always like to end with, if possible, that says the bird of humanity has been flying for centuries with only its male wing, that there's a male wing and a female wing for the bird of humanity. And the Native American prophecy says the bird of humanity has been flying for centuries primarily with only its male wing in all of us. And the female wing has not been fully extended. The yin in our culture, in our business, in our world has not been fully extended. It's been held back. So the male wing, in order to keep the bird of humanity afloat, has become overdeveloped and overmuscular and violent, and therefore the bird of humanity has been flying in circles for generations. And the 21st century is the Sophia century, when the bird of humanity will fly with both wings because the female wing in all of us will fully extend, the male wing will relax, and the bird of humanity will soar. So, one more thing to say. Sarah Vetter, who's here and has been here for the whole conference, would you stand up, Sarah? And come up on the stage. Ooh. Nope. Okay. She's going to help me with my final thing here.
What am I doing?
Well, I'll tell you. This is a little bit of a commercial, but, here I am on the stage. I've got to take advantage of it. We take executives, entrepreneurs, young people, old people, middle-aged people, children, grannies, to the rainforest, to the sacred headwaters of the rainforest, where we are working to protect the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. And we take them there and immerse them in the teachings of the rainforest, the intact rainforest, inclusion, diversity. There's no better teacher than the rainforest. Nobody's in charge there. There's no hierarchy. And the indigenous people don't just live there, they are of the forest. And if you decide to come with us, we live with them, we learn from them, we participate in their teaching plants, their medicines, their ceremonies, the shamans and the elders. I can think of nothing more awesome than to take some of you into the Amazon with us this summer. So we've talked to some of you individually, but maybe we'll create some sort of a place where you can sign up if you're interested in going with us. We're doing an all-women's trip in July, end of July.
To August 3rd.
And a men and women's trip the first 2 weeks of August, and y'all come.
And it's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'd like to do is teach you something that we learned in Turkey. One of our talks recently in Turkey, we learned something called the Turkish kiss. Would you all stand up, please? And turn to one person, not two. This only works with two people, doesn't work with three. So find a partner. Now face your partner. And raise your hand if you can hear the sound of my voice. Raise your hand if you can hear the sound of my voice. Raise your hand if you can hear the sound of my voice. I used to teach first grade. Okay, watch if you can see Sarah and I from where you are. This is a Turkish kiss. You take your right hand and take the hand of the person in front of you. Everybody do that. And then watch Sarah and I and then follow suit. We'll do it first. It's called a Turkish kiss. She's going to kiss the back of my hand at the same time I kiss the back of hers. Watch before you try it. Give your partner a Turkish kiss.